In almost every conversation I have, because of the work that I do, the topic of legacy comes up. At some point, we're asking ourselves, well, what does legacy mean? And oftentimes, my client is asking me, what does legacy mean? And I like to turn that question around. I like to ask them to think about, well, what does it mean to you? Because I think it could be very different for you than it is for me, and I think that's very valuable to have that perspective, to really think about what is my legacy, not what is your legacy. I'm interested in that, of course, but I'm also interested in what is my legacy. And I found that the most common thing that happens is that people start thinking about what they do or what they're going to leave behind. And they think that's what legacy means. They think that legacy is something that they're going to leave behind when they leave. And I see it as something very differently than that. In fact, I see legacy as something that I carry with me everywhere I go. And so this is a very important thought. I have a couple of examples that I like to use when I talk about legacy, and another item which is legend, which I think is more about what we do or the mark we make as we look back and we say this was this is what Andrew did. And so I think about two very important people, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Steve was a very powerful person in our economy and in our social setting. He created the smartphone. And so we had this great smartphone, and sadly, as he was dying from pancreatic cancer, he said to his children, I can't spend time with you right now because I have to bring the iPhone to light. That's going to be my legacy. And now several years have passed by, and several other phone companies have developed a smartphone. And where's Steve Jobs in this equation? Well, his company's still valuable to us, but over the years, I think we'll forget who Steve Jobs was. And when I say that, a lot of people say, no, we never will forget that. But think about this for a second. Who invented the television? You have one in your house, and you don't even know who invented it. And 50 plus years ago, that was a really important invention. And it changed the world. Just like an iPhone changed our world, the television changed the world, but none of us remember who invented the television. We have different kinds of televisions, different brands, and we use it every day still. And I suspect that in a few years from now, every one of us will still have some sort of a smartphone with us, but we won't think about Steve Jobs on that. We'll just think about the tool that it is. And on the other hand, we have a guy like Bill Gates who founded a company that also did great things, changed the world technologically for us, but he walked away from that. He went out and formed the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And as he formed that foundation, he started to do good things for people that they don't even know he's the one doing it. Things like clean water or education that's at a rate that people can afford here in our own country in the United States, or vaccinations, or different things where he's moving the world. And that's creating an influence that's going to be felt for many, many years to come. They'll forget that Bill Gates did it, but his work is kind of like planting a grove of trees. And that grove of trees is there, and you walk through it, and there's shade. And you can feel the shade of that grove, and you can feel the energy that went into planting that grove. And so we may forget that Bill was involved in Microsoft, and we may forget that he did these great things. But he and Melinda are doing some things that are going to be felt for a very long time. The people that receive those gifts are influencing others, and that's a legacy. A legacy is something that flows through into other people. A legend, what we do, is more about pushing up against something and leaving a mark. And I think it's really important to make that clear distinction, that as we look at legacy, we're thinking about who are we becoming and who are we taking with us. And as we look at legend, we're thinking back, what did we do? And how did that legend help us? And we forget legends. You don't believe me? Let me give you another example. Who was the president 100 years ago today? You probably don't know until you Google it. And if you do know, I bet you don't know who the vice president was, or who the most famous actor was or actress, who was influencing society then. But their families know, and that's where their legacy is felt today. So I think about, when I think about legend, I think about what are the things that I'm doing, also very important, because I want to make a contribution. But when I think about legacy, I think about who I'm becoming. Who are you becoming?